We are thrilled to be able to have an amazing keynote for our virtual event today. Melody Hawkins is an AmeriCorps alumna and educator who is passionate about serving students from underrepresented populations and students located in under-resourced communities. As a former 8th grade science teacher, Melody provided culturally relevant experience infused with social emotional learning to motivate and empower her students to achieve success. Currently, as a high school administrator, she leads with a passion and belief that all students deserve high quality, equitable education. After Melody graduated from the University of Tennessee with a bachelor's degree in biological sciences, she joined AmeriCorps and served through the American Red Cross New Orleans, Louisiana chapter. Later, as Melody pursued a career in science, she reflected back on her AmeriCorps experience and decided to redirect her focus on science education to address the disproportionate number of scientists of color in her field. Melody has received multiple awards for her teaching and her influence. Most recently, the 2021 National University Teacher of the Year. She's currently pursuing a doctoral degree in organizational innovation. Melody and her family live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and that's where she's joining us from live today. Melody, we are so glad to have you here to speak with us. Welcome.
Thank you so very much for such a beautiful introduction. And thank you for allowing me to be here with you all today. This is amazing. This is such a very important celebration for you as you enter a journey that will always leave a special mark on your life story. I will always remember my experience in AmeriCorps as a pivotal turning point in my life. Usually when people talk about turning points, it's connected to a grand experience, such as a marriage or the birth of a child. Other times when people talk about turning points, it is connected to the turning of a new age, another year to keep living and thriving and trying. But with all of these examples of turning points, they all have something in common. And that thing in common is that there's always a mindset shift involved in the process of a turning point. It was my mindset shift about who I am in this world that makes my AmeriCorps experience so powerful and so significant in my life. So as part of this occasion, I would like to tell you a story about how I was led to the AmeriCorps and how my experience helped to develop the person that I am ever becoming in this world. You have all just been introduced to me, Melody Hawkins, educator. If you had met me 2 years ago, you would know me as Melody Hawkins, science teacher. But for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be known as Dr. Melody the physician. So for most of my young life, I focused on everything that I would need to do as a doctor, including going to the University of Tennessee and immediately choosing microbiology and biological sciences as my course of study. I spent my summers volunteering in clinics back in my hometown in Jackson, Tennessee. And I was always reading random articles about medical topics and watching all the medical shows on TV. I was committed to life as a doctor. That is what I wanted to do. You see, I always knew what I wanted to do at every point in my life. Even if I was unsure of the process to get there, I knew without a doubt what I wanted to do. But as I shifted from being a wide-eyed, anxious teenager into a maturing young adult, for some reason, the what was not quite giving me enough motivation to push through the difficult moments. Attending college in a new city, 4.5 hours away from home, was difficult. Going to my 8 a.m. classes and being one of few students of color was difficult. Being one of 3 Black students in most of my college science classes was difficult. Trying to navigate this world as a young adult was difficult. I sometimes felt lonely, isolated, uncertain, intimidated. I tried as much as possible to remain focused on what I wanted to do with my life. I had always been an overachiever, so I felt like focusing on the what would certainly keep me sustained. But for some reason, what I wanted to do was just not enough to keep me motivated. And then, if that wasn't enough, I made a bold move and decided what I want to do is no longer connected to life as a doctor. That's when I felt stuck. My whole life, I was shaping my future around what I wanted to do professionally. And now here I was deciding that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And that was scary. We're always asked, what do you want to do? Melody, what do you want to do when you grow up? Melody, what do you want to do when you finish high school? Melody, what do you want to do when you graduate college? Perhaps asking the question, what do I want to do, is what led you to this experience. First Lady Michelle Obama said it best, that asking what I want to be or do is the worst question ever, as if growing up is finite, as if you become something and that is all there is. Perhaps that is also why it was still so difficult for me to focus on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, because what I really needed to be focusing on was something else. Instead of what I wanted to be, I really needed to be thinking about who I want to be. When I realized I was no longer sure about the what in my life, I decided to focus heavily on the who. And that's when I really started reflecting on a few things. And I'd like to share the 3 things that I began to reflect on as I searched for an answer to who I want to be. These reflections not only led me to AmeriCorps, the reflections helped guide me through my service year. It added immeasurable value to my journey, and then gave me purpose on to the next chapter of my life story. As I began to explore who I wanted to be, I thought about my earliest demonstrations of being. I asked myself, what do I value? What are my morals? I was raised in a house with a mother who grew up during the Civil Rights Movement. She's a history teacher who has firsthand knowledge of what it means to persevere against all odds. As a child and as an adult, I have witnessed my mother demonstrate honesty, compassion, integrity, faith, and strength. My father was the giant in the house. He stands 6'3" tall, and he was and still is humble, funny, witty. He's never met a stranger. He can laugh with anyone and sees the good in so many. Because of my mother's love for history, I too had an interest in history and was fascinated with people of the African diaspora and other indigenous populations. As a young child, I learned about the intellect of the Mansa people from Timbuktu and Mali, the political savviness of the Ashanti people of Ghana, and the medical contributions of those indigenous to present-day America. As a person of color, I carried this with me, deep in the parts of me that I protected from the negative perspectives of people of color in our society. Understanding more about the history of people of color in the world, combined with the values demonstrated by my parents, helped me to develop my own values. At a time of uncertainty in my life, a time where I was redefining my focus for my life, I realized that I heavily value community. I learned to believe that a strong community can cultivate generational gifts. And so as I reflected on who I want to be, I decided I want to be community-minded, socially concerned, and helpful to others. As I prepared to transition from undergraduate life to my career, I searched for organizations that share the same community-minded value as me, and that is how I found AmeriCorps. So in August 2010, I packed up everything that I would need and moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, where I made a commitment to serve the Southeast Louisiana community as an AmeriCorps member in the American Red Cross Southeast Louisiana chapter. It was here that I was ready to work and serve, but I was also open to learn. not only learn about the community I was serving and supporting, but I was also willing to learn more about myself. You see, I never stopped thinking about who I want to be. And as I shifted to thinking more about who I want to be, I stopped worrying about what I want to do. I knew that my becoming would guide my doing. And so I knew to continue focusing on the becoming. And as I continued to explore who I wanted to be, I also asked myself, what are my strengths? What am I good at? And how can I use my strengths to enhance the community that I value? I served as an AmeriCorps volunteer in the Southeast Louisiana community, and I learned so much about myself. Receiving late night and early morning fire calls to go and provide on-site emergency assistance to families who had lost everything they owned in home fires taught me that I am empathetic, I am compassionate, and I am a nurturer. Through teaching disaster preparedness classes to the community, I learned that I enjoy teaching and motivating others. And by training newly interested American Red Cross volunteers, I learned that I am a passionate leader and I find joy in seeing others excel. I learned that these are my strengths and my gifts. And these are the gifts that I want to use to enhance my community. As I further continue to explore who I want to be, I began to constantly reflect on my why. It was at the end of my 10-month commitment in New Orleans that I began to ask myself, what is my why? I looked around, I reflected, I thought, and then I gained guidance for my why from the AmeriCorps Pledge. And to this day, I wake up, I spend time with my family, I give back to my students and my community because I believe I can contribute to making our society safer, smarter, and healthier, physically, mentally, and emotionally healthier. I believe I can use my strengths as a compassionate, empathetic leader to serve what I value, which is my community. Your why can be connected to many areas of your life. Your why can be connected to things you experienced in your home or in your community. Your why is what gets you going through the day. And yes, sometimes your why can change as you encounter various scenarios. You can even evolve in your why as you grow older and wiser. And the more you ask yourself, why me? Why now? Why here? The more you begin to peel back the layers of who you are becoming. Identifying my values, my strengths and gifts, and identifying my why pushed me to understand who I want to be. My time in the AmeriCorps allowed me to focus on my values, my strengths, my gifts, and my why as I learned more about who I want to become. My service year led me to realizing that I am an educator. I'm a forever teacher and always becoming and evolving in this capacity. So what I do now as an educator is because I know who I am in this world. As I have shared my story through the years with others, I've also learned that age, educational attainment, or socioeconomic status are no barrier to developing who you want to be. It is not finite. It is limitless. No matter where you are in your life, no matter your age, your background, your career accomplishments, or career attributions, or career dreams, it is limitless to dream and think and wonder about who you can become in this world. So now I challenge you. I challenge you to ask yourself and to allow yourself the freedom to imagine who you are becoming through your experience with AmeriCorps. Think about this just as much as you think about what you are doing in your service year, maybe even more. Imagine who you want to be for others, who you want to be for your community, for your family, and perhaps most importantly, who do you want to be for yourself? Allow those thoughts to shape a vision for your life that brings purpose, passion, and peace. For that vision will be your motivation to keep going, to keep moving, keep learning, keep thriving, and keep living. Never stop asking yourself, who do I want to be? It has been an honor to share this message with you today, and I welcome you to this journey of becoming. May you find great joy in this process. Thank you.